Hello, this is CapCan Knows, the official podcast of the Capital Area College Access Network. You may be familiar with our newsletter articles of the same name. We are very excited to engage the community in conversations about college access. I'm your host, Jacob Tkaczyk, an AmeriCorps Vista serving with CapCan. Today, back again, we have Michelle Strauss with me.
Good afternoon.
And today we have our special guest, Ann Green. She is the co-chair of the Parent Advisory Committee. So let's get started. First of all, Ann, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'll get started with the first question. So if you don't mind answering, who encouraged you to go to college, and why was it important for you to continue your education after high school?
Well, I'm not really sure anybody encouraged me to go to high school or to college. I grew up in a family where actually nobody went to college, so I was the first one in my family to finish a 4-year degree, and I think it was important to me at the time because I really didn't have any plans after high school, and most of my friends had plans to go to college, so I thought, well, I can do that, and that's what I did.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So, Ann, I'm really excited to talk today with you about the Ingham Intermediate School District Parent Advisory Committee. I'm sure a lot of our listeners don't know what that is and why it's so important to our community. So could you please tell us a little bit more about the Parent Advisory Committee's mission and how they might get involved?
Sure. The Ingham ISD Parent Advisory Committee is comprised of parent volunteers, each representing one of the school districts in the Ingham ISD, so that includes Dansville, East Lansing, Holt, Leslie, Mason, Waverly, Weberville, there's more. And I personally represent the Waverly School District. The purpose of the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee is to represent the views of parents who have children with an active IEP. We provide input to the ISD for things that are going on in our individual districts, and then we also get information back from the ISD that we disseminate to our parents in our districts. There might be information about law changes or some new programs that are coming up, grants that may have been awarded to the ISD where we might get some services for our kids based on that. It's been kind of a challenge for us to figure out the best way to share that kind of information. So the more parents that we have involved in this, the more informed we'll be and the better we'll be able to serve our kids and do what's best for them.
Mm-hmm. So as Ann and I both have students that have disabilities. Mine is a learning disability, yours is a developmental disability. We use a lot of terminology in the special ed world that people may not be familiar with. You said IEP, so
Yeah.
Would you mind explaining what an IEP is for our listeners?
IEP is an individual education plan. So any student that has developmental disability, they might have a learning disability, they could have a behavioral thing going on. You can request your teachers and think that you need an IEP. They'll evaluate your child, and if they feel that they meet the requirements for that, then they'll come up with a plan to find the best way to serve your kid while they're at school. So you can have accommodations. Let's say they're kind of fidgety and they might have ADHD or something like that. Maybe a seat in the front of the class might be a good thing for them, or they might need a fidget to deal with speech therapy. How many hours a week are they going to get speech? Do they need OT, occupational therapy? How many hours a week are they? If you have that in the plan, then the school has to do that for your student. So.
They may need extra time on a test.
Exactly.
They may need that test
read to them.
They may need to take the test verbally. There's a whole host of accommodations that are potentially available.
Yeah, anything that you can think of that might help your student be a better student, put it in the plan. I heard the other day a raised desk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
great.
Anything, yeah.
Thank you. So I've been working with you for about 4 years now through the Parent Advisory Committee, and we've been talking about college access, but why do you believe that the Parent Advisory Committee is concerned about college access in our community?
I think it's important for all of us to know that college is for everyone. And just because you have a disability does not mean that you don't have any post-secondary options. I am a parent of a child with a disability, and it's easy to fall into a mindset where you think your choices are limited. And I've seen it time and time again. It's so easy to do. Well, that's good for you, but I'm not sure my kid can do that. Well, when you go out to these fairs and these expos that we've been doing together for these last few years, and you see these students get, like last year at that career when we were out at LCC at their facility out there, and these kids saw what was available to them and that this was a real possibility, like light bulbs switched on. You could see it in their faces, and all of a sudden the whole world opened up to them, and it's exciting to watch.
Definitely. I think to expound upon that for a second, we talk about college really broadly in the work that we do, and I know you understand that, but for our listeners, we're talking about any type of post-secondary degree or credential. So it could be a young person who wants to go into a trade or wants to do a technical program like welding, and there are opportunities in our community for young people with disabilities to be able to participate in those vocational technical programs, but then they also might be as part of their post-secondary planning, their IEPs and their transition plans, they might have the opportunity to pursue a 2 or a 4-year degree as well. So I think it's important for parents to understand that there is a wide variety of options for their young people in post-secondary education, that it doesn't have to be limited to that 2 or 4-year degree, particularly for students with disabilities.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So why did the Parent Advisory Committee start partnering with CAPCAN?
Well, I'm going to give this one my best shot because I believe CAPCAN's been a partner with the PAC before I came on board. So I really don't know how it started, but I do know that CAPCAN has been instrumental in planning and running the College and Career Expo. Your expertise in the area of post-secondary opportunities, resources, is amazing. We couldn't do anything without you. This year is the 3rd or the 4th time?
This will be the 4th time.
4th time. So this is the 3rd time I've been involved with it. With the College and Career Expo, every year a little bigger, a little better, a little different, because we expanded. The first year I was involved, it was just college focused, and then we expanded to college and career, and we like that, so we want to keep going down both of those avenues. Anyway, it's exciting. It's exciting, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We're really pleased to do it. And I think in somewhat answer to your question, because I have a student who had or has learning disabilities, now graduated from college, thank goodness. But it was important to me as a parent to make sure that other parents knew that pathway was open to their kids. So when I was invited to participate in one of your first transitions fairs that we'll talk about in a minute, I could see the potential of offering some different options for families to see that there was opportunities for their students, and then to empower their students to explore those options. And we all know as parents that when a student can send, it makes it more understandable, but if you can really envision yourself on a college campus like we've done with the fair, they can say, yeah, I can do this because I know where I'm going, I've met some of the faculty here, I've tried out some of the programs. So, you know, it's important for all students to do this, but particularly students who have a disability to be able to envision themselves being on a college campus.
Okay, absolutely.
Great. Good. So I guess I'll turn my questions over to Jake now.
Excellent. So I kind of want to bring back to a topic that you touched on pretty briefly, and how you mentioned that parents, and once again, I don't have experience with this as a parent, but you did mention how parents can kind of fall into a mindset, a specific mindset, especially in regards with their children who have any sort of disability. But what can they do, the parents of all these children, to best help their child's transition from high school to college, the workforce, or a trade program?
Well, for me, one of the biggest things I do, I try anyway, if they like something, I encourage them to continue to do that, and their biggest supporter and biggest cheerleader. Be informed. Gather as much information as you possibly can about what they're interested in. If it's a college, gather as much information as you possibly can. Do they need to talk to somebody about accommodations? What kinds of programs are available at the college? Figure out what colleges are out there that have programs that your child is interested in. Just gather as much information as you possibly can. One of the places that you can do that is our Transition Expo that the Parent Advisory Committee helps to sponsor. We bring in all these community partners, and it's everywhere from Michigan Rehabilitation Services, Disability Network, Mental Health Services, a company that teaches kids how to drive a car, the whole gamut. So all these people are there, a great place to gather information and learn what's available in our community that can help you help your child.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So obviously, you, the PAC, are a great resource for Ingham County families and students. But what are some other resources out there for families who have children with disabilities, and how can they find them or best find them?
I'll name a few resources that I know of. There's Michigan Alliance for Families, Mid-Michigan Autism, Lansing Intentional Communities, No More Sidelines, Community Mental Health. Those are just a few that I know off the top of my head. If you go out to the Ingham ISD Parent Advisory Committee webpage, we have a list of resources out there and links to all kinds of different resources that are available in our community.
Well, thank you so much. And for those listening, we will be providing links to these websites on the Parent Advisory Committee website as well in the description below. So feel free to share with those in your life who may have a need for some of these services. So thank you again, Ann.
So Ann, we talked a little bit already about the IEP. One of the things that I know I've talked about with the other parents, and certainly in some of the workshops that we've done in partnership with you, is that you can take your IEP to college. And a lot of people don't realize that there are certain steps that the student needs to take in their transition to be able to take that IEP to college. So for example, the student needs to have the documents, and the student needs to take that information to the disability office of their college. One of the other things that we've talked about is that it's hard sometimes for parents to recognize that their child is transitioning into adulthood, and that they need to let their student, to some extent, be more owners and more advocates for themselves through the process.
Exactly.
And yet we also realize that some students don't necessarily have the ability to do that without additional support.
Right.
So parents may need to get permission when their student goes to college to actually speak to that person at the college about their students' needs and their records and that. So are there other things that our listeners should know about students with disabilities to support their success, particularly as they're transitioning?
I think it's important as your child gets older, maybe like middle school might be a good time to start. Have your child go to the IEP meetings with you. Let them learn how to advocate for themselves because they're in the classroom every day. They know what works and what doesn't. And as they get older, start to wean yourself out and let your kid run their IEP. And let them be their own advocate because they will be the best advocate for themselves when they learn how to do that. And it's hard as a parent. You're kicking them out of the nest. And it doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. That's a hard thing to do as a parent. But whenever you watch them do that, you see how everything changes. All of a sudden, like they're more confident. They're growing up, and it's a wonderful thing to see. So proud of them. So.
Definitely. I personally experienced that, so I know what you mean there. So, thanks.
Alrighty, well, we will be ending here soon. Unfortunately, our time is running out, and I believe Michelle and I have really enjoyed our conversation with you, Ann, so thank you so much for listening to us, or for speaking with us, for our audience to listen to. And I do want to just say something that, so I do have a younger cousin. I mentioned that I'm not a parent, but I do have a younger cousin who does require an IEP as well. And it makes me really happy to hear that there's so many people, especially in the Ingham County schools, who are so passionate about helping out students with all sorts of disabilities. So thank you for what you do with the PAC and thank you to the PAC itself. So I really do appreciate everything you guys do for those students.
Thank you.
But sorry about that. Getting a little emotional. So it seems like our time's running out, and I have one last question for you. We end every interview with Cap Can Knows, where you would state your name and what you know. So I ask you, Ms. Green, who are you and what do you know?
Oh boy. My name is Ann Green, and I know that the possibilities are endless when I don't put limits on them.
Well, thank you so much. And so that is all the time we have for today. So I want to thank you, Michelle, for joining me back here again.
I'm delighted to be in this conversation.
And for the 18th time, thank you again, Ann, for coming by as well.
Thank you for having me.
So for more information on CapCan or the PAC, be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. We'll be sharing the links for the Parent Advisory Committee down below in the description as well. And then also please visit our website, capcan.org. As of today, October 1st of this launch, or of 2019, we have launched our new website, so just want to plug that in there really quick. So thank you, all of you, for listening to us today, and we hope to see you again very soon.